Oh, howdy all, grab yourself a drink, it is time for some Path of Exile discussion. Patch 3.20 introduced 10 new Divination cards to the game. Some of these more solo self-found named, like the one for Queen of the Forest. Some of them more trade league oriented, like the one for a single corrupted Mageblood. And I wanted to go through what's known so far about where these drop. A little bit of a disclaimer, this is based upon research and reports from other players. Some of this might be wrong, although I personally believe everything that I'm going to say in this video. I definitely have been wrong in the past, I will be wrong in the future. The research that goes into finding these comes from a player-run Discord called the Divcord. This is not that hard to find an invite to online, but it's not my baby, so I can't invite you to it. I'll give an indication as to how certain I am about each card as well. So firstly, we have a dusty memory, and here we know absolutely nothing. There are no reports of this dropping outside of stack decks and various things like altars so far, and so this is something that is a complete unknown. If you know anything about a dusty memory's drop location, definitely let me know. Secondly, we have Alivia's Grace. Now, this divination card drops from forest-themed tilesets, and it is moderately common. This one I'm extremely certain of. This drops in Ashen, Spider Forest, Lair, Thicket, Dark Forest, and Forbidden Woods, and also is believed but not yet confirmed to drop in Jungle Valley, Ramparts, Tropical Island, Stagnation, and Bramble Valley. It's kind of hard to test maps that are not currently on the Atlas at the moment. The reason that it's believed to drop from those is because of tags. One of the biggest breakthroughs in divination card finding that took place a couple of leagues ago was when players started realizing that behind the scenes, GGG assigns various tags to different maps. I'll put a link down in the description below to a comprehensive list of all maps and all of their tags. Now, these tags then seem to indicate what divination cards can drop there. For example, the divination card, the Apothecary, can drop only from maps that have blood_mage_boss as one of the tags on that map. And that is Crimson Temple, Defile Cathedral, which I think is taking a break from the Atlas this league, Haunted Mansion, and also Crimson Township. This is extremely useful in pinning down drop locations on a number of rare cards, because we're able to then form testable hypotheses. So for example, we're able to say that Defile Cathedral should drop Mageblood's divination card, the Apothecary, and then we were able to test those and they turned out to be right. So Alivia's Grace is forest_area as a tag, and the maps that we discussed before. Next, we have Auspicious Ambitions. Now, this divination card was originally erroneously reported as dropping only from the Uber versions of various Pinnacle bosses. It now appears that it drops from Maven, Uber Maven, Searing Exarch, Uber Searing Exarch, Eater of Worlds, Uber Eater of Worlds, Uber Elder, Uber Duber Elder, and confirmation is still waiting either way on the regular version of the Elder fight, the monster level 83 version where the Shaper is not present. Anyways, it drops from the Eldritch Pinnacle bosses. Not any Pinnacle boss, but the Eldritch one specifically. Next, we have Divine Beauty, which is a divination card that people were pretty happy to get their hands on in the Trade League. Now, this is not one of the rarest divination cards in the game or anything like it. It's certainly not common, but it is something that you will see if you run 100 maps. This drops from map bosses only, and it is map bosses that are based upon Merveil. This also includes Shock and Horror from the Mineral Pools, which thematically might seem a little bit different to Merveil, but its body is the same as that of the second form of Merveil. And as a result, Shock and Horror is considered divine and beautiful. This does also include the unique map Maelstrom of Chaos, although in practice you're mostly going to get this from non-unique maps. This card is pretty rare, but it is not staggeringly rare. Now, it's also worth noting that this can't drop from Merveil in Act 1. This has a drop level restriction of 68, which means that only monsters capable of dropping item level 68 or above loot can drop this divination card. Next, we have Ever Changing. If you've run a few Kirac missions this league, you will have found this card. This card drops while you are inside a Kirac mission, and it drops quite a lot. Next, we have Man with Bear. This is confirmed to drop from any monster in the Cemetery map, and it is believed, based upon tags, to also drop from monsters in the Barrows map, but that has not yet been confirmed. Next, we have the Finishing Touch. This one drops a lot if you play around with Betrayal. This one comes from interactions with Hillock during the Betrayal system. It can come both from interacting with Hillock in maps, and also from interacting with Hillock in a safe house. This is one of the highest drop rate divination cards around, and will come up a very large amount of the time that you interact with Hillock. Next, we have the Insane Cat, probably the one that those of you that are Trade League players are most concerned about. This divination card was speculated to drop from Delirium bosses, so that is Kosis and Omniphobia, after someone reported that it had dropped from Kosis, but they didn't have even a screenshot, much less a video clip, and as a result, this was considered to be just a compelling lead. There's also a new monster tag in the game files, Affliction_boss, and this usually happens when there is a divination card that is being tied to it. So we thought there was a reasonable chance of it being Kosis and Omniphobia, but then video footage came along, and I'll put a link down in the description below. that shows a tier 16, 20% delirious Crimson Temple map, where Omniphobia is defeated and the Insane Cat drops on camera. This was enough to personally convince me that this comes from these specific Delirium bosses. I'm not going to fault you if you don't agree, but for me, this is now a solved card. This is dropping from Delirium bosses in maps. It may also drop from Delirium bosses in the Simulacrum. That one's going to be a lot harder to demonstrate because you're going to need to get a drop from the boss at the same time as you have no other valid sources of Divination card drops, but that's something that may happen for someone over the next little while. But for now, I am personally convinced that this comes from Delirium bosses in maps. Now, how would you go about target farming this? Well, probably the best way to get a lot of Delirium bosses is going to be to set up an atlas that is themed around Delirium, and then in the top left corner of the tree to take the pathological cluster. This causes maps that drop in your maps to have a 4% chance to be delirious, with at least one but potentially multiple layers of Delirium. This is 3% from pathological itself and 1% from the small node immediately before it. 4% isn't very much, but so many maps drop these days, especially if you also supplement your maps with at least a polished cartography scarab, that you will end up swimming in these delirious maps that you'll be able to run, and you'll be able to run them back to back. That said, the Insane Cat is going to be a staggeringly rare card. You may well do 1,000 of these delirious maps back to back without seeing a single copy of this card, so don't try and target farm this unless you are a bit of an Insane Cat. And ultimately, the best way to get yourself a Mageblood is still likely to be to craft for profit and then trade for the Mageblood. Next we have Return of the Rat. This one drops from warehouse themed maps that have the warehouse_area tag and also includes the refinery in Act 9. And finally we have the Wedding Gift. This one here we've got some promising leads, but this is much less certain even than the Insane Cat. This has been reported as dropping from a rare monster in a Sunken City map. This is not something that I'm going to say is absolutely comprehensive proof that this is where this card drops, because there are a couple of shenanigans where rare monsters can convert one of their items into a random divination card that would be from outside the area, but I do think it's pretty likely because that conversion would be very, very rare. Getting one divination card that's out of area from a rare monster is a pretty rare outcome, and getting the Wedding Gift, which is likely one of the 50 rarest divination cards in the game, rather than getting something much more common like Reign of Chaos, which we speculate to be sort of 1,800 to 2,000 times as common as this card, that is going to be a bit of a fluke. I can't rule it out, and that's why I'm not willing to say that this is solved, but I think the most likely location for this card is for it to be in the Sunken City map. As for its rarity, it's a bit hard to be absolutely certain, but I personally believe this is likely to be about 4 times as rare as the divination card The Nurse, and as a result, it's not going to be something that will be easy to self-farm a set of, but it's also not something that's completely impossible either. Anyways, that's the divination cards of 3.20. May your Varlobs have interesting results, and I will see you around.